Today I want to focus specifically on technology-facilitated gender-based violence. And the reason is also because, as we know, there's an evidence growing around GBV as a pathway to radicalization, gender-based hate, often very prevalent across extremist ideology, and really what we're trying to do in our day-to-day work is understand those root causes of gender-based violence, including emotion, including the neuroscience behind it, so that we can help develop intervention that help us shift those social norms, those attitudes, and the structure that normalize this violence and which also fuels violent extremism. And our work is really, and I've heard it a lot today, and that's great, our work is really underpinned by human-centered design and building human connections. It's at the center of everything we do. We really try to ensure that all of our work results in win-win situations, that we're not furthering othering or exclusion. And our strategic communications interventions, what we really look at doing is really foster self-reflection on the use of technology, on how it overlaps with beliefs and with norms around gender, around power, and how we can strengthen response skills such as fairly basic digital and safety skills, but also bystander intervention and community activism to help respond to some of those issues. And what I wanted to focus on today is a bit of our work on Middle East and Central America, so I'll kind of alternate between both. We worked in Kurdistan, in Iraqi Kurdistan, and in Mexico, and we really set ourselves to really examine those underlying drivers of technology-facilitated GBV. A space that, the online space that used to be a very promising space for women, and where now they're also being exposed to further violence. And one of the first things we found is actually more than the root cause, is one of the consequences of TFGBV, which I think resonates a lot with your presentation on othering. A lot of the victims and survivors of TFGBVs are treated with an emphasis on blaming women for the violence. In Kurdistan, women tend to be othered in various forms when they are victims or survivors of violence. First by their own families, where particularly male members often feel pressure to correct the behavior that may have led to technology-facilitated gender-based violence. Extreme cases have been honor killing, so this really takes very strong forms of punishment. In Mexico, we found less extreme versions of otherings, but still, we had 63% of men that were surveyed agreeing that women are responsible for not sending intimate images, and that if they do share them in the context of a relationship, not in the context of, then it's okay for them to break that trust and share them onward. And all of this has meant that women shy away from those online spaces, shy away from public spaces, and can contribute less to society. And what we try to do is really find some of those key human insights that Thomas was talking about this morning, and try to understand how we could use those insights to design intervention that could effectively shift behaviors. And so we designed two very distinct campaigns. In Kurdistan, we really focused on actually values, but traditional values. We helped work with existing values. We use a local saying, you and your conscience, which was really something that helps people self-reflect, to put the emphasis on this victim blaming, and really try to build, moving actually from initially our ideas, where to look at what we can do to prevent violence. We're okay, how can we at least work on ensuring that victims are not further excluded from society? And so we really worked on using strategic communication as a way for communities, families to reflect on how they could welcome and support survivors of violence. And in Mexico, on the other hand, we really worked with men on challenging those harmful social norms and stereotypes that drive the non-consensual sharing of intimate images online. We worked a lot on the emotion. I'll touch a bit on that as well. And in both interventions, we moved away also from, we used a lot of the traditional media work, but we also did a lot of really community engagement, community activations, creating that space for people to come together on that journey to reflect and to really challenge those behaviors and practices. In Mexico, we worked with grassroots feminist organizations to deliver a range of community-based activities. We did mural painting, we did rap sessions, we did interactive theaters. We had in each of those events 80 to 100 attendees kind of like coming together, reflecting and really working. What we were trying to do is really work them on empathy, really trying to get them to connect with people as fellow human beings, women as fellow human beings. And we had some really great results, like some of the, I've got a few quotes from our participants. One of them said, we heard from a person who mentioned that he forwarded some of like nude photos to different groups. And that then hearing from several men about how it makes them feel to receive them and the negative impact they have on the women in their lives, it made him reflect and he now understand that those actions were like hurtful to women. And we really kind of use that as a way, because again, sustainable change in behavior has to happen with some kind of empathy. It has to be a journey. It's not just a confrontation. It's not just telling you this is not right. It's not about challenging your value system. It's about, I really believe, creating those win-win outcomes. In Kurdistan, we did the whole program culminated with an immersive community event where actually each participant were introduced to a series of booths where they could choose a character, and using all of the insights from our research and our programs, they could really put themselves in the shoes of that characters. Again, the idea was to really look at how can we build empathy and how can we like leverage each of the characters' like storyline to encourage conversations about consequences of harmful gender norms, but also by providing families and friends information with like available support services. So again, really in our projects, what we try to do is through highlighting like interactive participatory sessions, help ignite discussions around violence, help building human connections, and really we've seen really significant change. In Kurdistan, our youth empowerment program, it's called Tech Care, showed positive improvement across a range of areas. For participants, we've seen a 16% percentage point from 60% to 76%. Increase of participants who reported understanding the skills needed to help others, therefore supporting on bystander effect, but also an agreement that gender-based violence should be reported even if it's not life-threatening. Something should be done about it. It should be called out. And we really demonstrated growing support for reporting and accessing services in a context that is incredibly difficult with the Iraqi government basically banning even the use of the word gender. So that was really, really important. And I think to finish, I want to actually touch on Virginie's discussion on emotional governance. We also worked on a program in Honduras where we used SBC intervention as a way to help to support men in addressing their feelings and their emotions. And really, what we've seen in a lot of communities, we worked in some of the most gang-ridden kind of like violence communities in Honduras, where it's really not socially acceptable for men to talk about their emotions or their feelings. And where as a result, they have no outlet to communicate frustrations, challenges, which leads to isolation, poor emotional governance. And so we work closely in San Pedro Sula with young men to co-create campaigns around positive masculinities, and really looking at how we could use that to increase physical, emotional, and verbal, or to decrease, emotional, physical, and verbal violence against women. And so the campaign was called It's a Man Thing, and really looked at how we could normalize feeling and emotions that could be not aligned with traditional views of masculinity. We worked with 35 champions across the community, and then they trickled down those programs to 400 youth, and really looking at how we could ensure that they really owned that they felt very engaged, that they felt that was part of their role as young men. They were very proud of being able to be championing, actually, less violence in their communities. And we did that by also aligning with traditional community values as well, of respect and understanding.